Today we discuss about the plus 2 lesson chapter 12 ecosystem. What is ecosystem? An ecosystem consists of functional unit of nature. An ecosystem consists of functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surroundings. The surroundings with the physical environment. So, entire biosphere as a global ecosystem. There are three main types of ecosystems. They are terrestrial ecosystem, second aquatic ecosystem, and third man-made ecosystem. There are three types of ecosystems. Terrestrial ecosystem consists of forest, grassland and desert. Aquatic ecosystem consists of ponds, lake, wetland, river and estuaries. What is estuary? Estuary is a region where river and ocean joined. Third type of ecosystem, man-made ecosystem. Examples, crop fields and aquarium. There are three types of ecosystems: terrestrial, aquatic and man-made. Considering the structure of ecosystem, should consider the following terms. First, input. What is input? Input means productivity. Next term, transfer of energy. Transfer of energy. That means food chain, food web, nutrient cycles. We should learn clearly. Next term, output. Output means degradation and energy loss. Degradation or energy loss. The transfer of energy means food chain, food web, nutrient cycles. An ecosystem consists of functional unit of nature. There are mainly three types of ecosystems: terrestrial, aquatic and man-made. Forest and grassland, desert are examples of terrestrial ecosystem. Pond, lake, wetland, river and estuaries are examples of aquatic ecosystem. The crop field and aquarium are examples of man-made ecosystem. Estuary is a region where river and ocean joined. Considering the structure of an ecosystem, should consider the following terms. That means input, transfer of energy, output and fourth, relationships. Relationships means cycles, chains and webs. That are created as a result of these energy flows within the system and their interrelationship. Next topic, ecosystem structure and function. Ecosystem structure and function. Interaction of biotic and abiotic components. Biotic means living components, abiotic components means non-living components. Interaction of biotic and abiotic components resulting in a physical structure that is characteristic for each type of ecosystem. Next term, species composition. What is species composition? Identification and enumeration of plant and animal species of an ecosystem. Species composition means identification and enumeration of plant and animal species of an ecosystem. That gives its species composition. Next term, stratification. Stratification. It is the vertical distribution of different species. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called stratification. Vertical distribution of different species occurring different levels is called stratification. Examples: trees occupy top vertical strata or layer of a forest. Strata means layer. Shrubs and second and herbs and grasses occupy the bottom layers. If we consider the forest, the first layer, the highest layer occupies trees, second layer shrubs, and the bottom layer include herbs and grasses. Next term or topic, function of an ecosystem. Function of an ecosystem. There are main functions. First, productivity. Second, decomposition. Third, energy flow. Fourth, nutrient cycling. Functions of an ecosystem with mainly 4 terms. That first one, the productivity. Second, decomposition. Third, energy flow. Fourth, nutrient cycling. If we take pond as an ecosystem, pond is a self-sustainable unit. Pond is a self-sustainable unit. It is a shallow water body. Organic rich soil in the bottom. The solar input, cycling of temperature, day length, and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of functions of such ecosystem, that is the pond. Pond is a self-sustainable unit. It has a shallow water body, organic rich soil, the solar input, cycling of temperature, day length, and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of functions. The autotrophic component of a pond. The autotrophic component of a pond include phytoplanktons. What are phytoplanktons? Phytoplanktons are the unicellular plants that float on the water bodies. Then some algae and floating, submerged and marginal plants found on the edges are including the autotrophic component of the pond. Phytoplanktons, some algae, floating, submerged and marginal plants. Floating, submerged, marginal plants that found on the edges of the pond. The consumers of the pond that consist of zooplanktons. The consumers. The consumers of pond include zooplanktons. The free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. The free swimming and bottom dwelling living forms. Free swimming like fishes and bottom dwelling crabs etc. are the consumers. Then decomposers of the pond. Decomposers include fungi, bacteria and flagellates. Conversion of inorganic into organic material. Conversion of inorganic material such as water, oxygen etc. into organic material, that means carbon containing materials. Conversion of inorganic material to organic material with the help of radiant energy. That means the energy from sun. The energy from sun utilized by the autotrophic components and they convert the inorganic material to organic material. Plants are the autotrophs. The heterotrophic consumes autotrophs. Mainly the autotrophs are plants. The heterotrophs consume autotrophs. Heterotrophs are the organisms, mainly animals. They consume the autotrophs, that means the plants, for their food requirement. Decomposition and mineralization of dead matter to release back for reuse of autotrophs, that is by the decomposers. There is a unidirectional movement of energy. The energy flow is always unidirectional towards the higher trophic level, from the lower trophic level to the higher trophic level, and its depletion and loss as heat to the environment. The energy loss mainly occurred by the loss of heat. The heat is the byproduct of cellular respiration. These events are repeated over and over. So this ecosystem performs all the function of any ecosystem and the biosphere as a whole. So The pond is a perfect ecosystem. That is a self-sustainable unit including all components of any type of ecosystems. What is productivity? Productivity. Primary production is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants during photosynthesis. The primary production is defined as the amount of biomass. Biomass means the dry weight or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants during photosynthesis, known as primary production. It is expressed in terms of weight gram per minus 2 or g raised to minus 2 by r raised to minus 1. Or kilocalorie m raised to minus 2 into yr raised to minus 1. Next, what is net productivity? Net productivity. It is the gross primary productivity GPP, gross primary productivity minus respiratory rate is equal to net primary productivity. What is net primary productivity? The gross primary productivity GPP minus the respiratory loss, that is the cellular respiration. The cellular respiration, that is a destructive process or catabolic process. If we reduce the respiration loss rate from the gross primary productivity rate, we get the net primary productivity. The net primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption to heterotrophs. Net primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption or eating to heterotrophs. Next, secondary productivity. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. The primary productivity depends upon area, environmental factors, nutrients and photosynthetic capacity of plants. The primary productivity depends upon the area of the ecosystem, area of the ecosystem, environmental factors that include biotic and abiotic factors, nutrients like carbon dioxide, water, etc., and minerals, and photosynthetic capacity of the plants that situated on that particular ecosystem. It varies in different types of ecosystem. The primary productivity varies in different types of ecosystems. The annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. The annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. That is dry weight per or by biomass of organic matter. The productivity of oceans only 55 billion tons. The productivity of oceans only 55 billion tons. Rest of course on land. The maximum productivity of aquatic ecosystem, that is coral reefs. The maximum productivity from aquatic ecosystem, that is from coral reefs. The maximum productivity of terrestrial ecosystem, that means the tropical rainforest, and the maximum productivity of artificial ecosystem, that is from sugarcane crop. The maximum productivity of aquatic ecosystem from coral reefs. The maximum productivity of terrestrial ecosystem from tropical rainforest. Tropical rainforest. The maximum productivity of artificial ecosystem from sugarcane crop. Next, about decomposition. Decomposition. Next topic, decomposition. What is decomposers? Decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients. This process is called decomposition. Decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients. This process is called decomposition. What is detritus? The term detritus that related to decomposition. Detritus. Dead plant remains, dead remains of animals including fecal matters constitute detritus. Dead plant remains, dead remains of animals including fecal matters constitute detritus. Detritus is the raw materials for decomposition. Detrivores. Detrivores, example earthworm, break down detritus into smaller particles. That means fragmentation by the process of leaching. Water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into soil horizon and get precipitated as an available salt. Bacterial and fungal enzymes degrade detritus into simpler inorganic substances. This process is called catabolism. The destruction process are always known as catabolic process. The decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, etc. This process is called decomposition. Detritus are the dead plant remains, dead remains of animals including fecal matters constitute detritus. Detrivores, example earthworms, break down detritus into smaller particles, that is fragments, by the process of catabolism. That include leaching. Water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as an available salt. Bacterial and fungal enzymes degrade detritus into simpler organic substances. This process is called catabolism. Humidification and mineralization occur in decomposition in the soil. Humidification leads to accumulation of a dark colored amorphous substance called humus. Humidification leads to accumulation of a dark colored amorphous substance called humus that is highly resistant to microbial actions and undergo decomposition. They are highly resistant to microbial action. Humus are highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. The decomposition of humus is extremely slow rate. Being colloidal in nature, humus serve as a reservoir of nutrients further degraded by some microbial release of inorganic nutrients by the process of mineralization. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process, that is aerobic process. The rate of decomposition, that is catabolism or splitting, controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. So, decomposition slower if detritus rich in lignin and tannin. If the detritus rich with the soluble, non-soluble substances like lignin and chitin, the decomposition become a slow process. The decomposition become quicker when the detritus rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugars. There are two types of decomposition, slower and quicker. If the detritus rich in lignin and chitin, it is a slow process, and the detritus rich in nitrogen and water soluble substance, it is a quicker process. The depletion is quicker in process. Temperature and moisture of soil. Temperature and moisture of soil are the main important climatic factors that regulate decomposition, that affect microbial action. Warm and moist environment favor decomposition. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition. Low temperature and anaerobiasis, that is the low concentration of oxygen, anaerobiasis, inhibit the decomposition or slow down the decomposition process. Here is a flowchart of decomposition cycle. The leaching, fragmentation and catabolism of detritus to form humidification. Then the colloidal humus, mineralization to form organic and inorganic materials. Next, energy flow. Energy flow. Except for the deep sea. Except for the deep sea, hydrothermal ecosystem, the sun is the only source of energy. Except the deep sea, sun is the only source of energy for all other ecosystems on earth. Less than 50% of solar radiation is photosynthetically active radiation. Less than 50% of solar radiation is photosynthetically active radiation. Green plants and photosynthetic and chemosynthetic bacteria, that means autotrophs. Green plants, photosynthetic and chemosynthetic bacteria include autotrophs, fix sun's radiant energy to make food. Plant capture only 2 to 10% of PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiation. This small amount of energy sustained entire living world. Only 2 to 10% of PAR sustained entire living world. All organisms are dependent for their food on producers. All organisms depend for their food on producers, that is green plants, directly or indirectly. All organisms depend plants directly or indirectly for their food requirement. So the flow of energy is unidirectional. That means sun to producers, that is plants, green plants, to consumers, this flow is keeping the first law of thermodynamics. The ecosystem need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules. They are required to counteract the universal tendency towards increasing disorderliness that follows second law of thermodynamics. The ecosystem need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules. They are required to counteract the universal tendency towards increasing disorderliness that follow the second law of thermodynamics. Green plants, phytoplanktons, algae and higher plants are usually the producers of different ecosystems. The green plants, phytoplanktons, algae, higher plants are usually the producers of all different ecosystems. The energy trapped by producers passed to consumers. The death of organism is the beginning of detritus food chain. The death of organisms begin the detritus food chain or food web. Begins the detritus food chain or food web. Detritus food chain or detritus food web. The plants that are the producers are autotrophs to goat. Example, goat, that is the primary consumer they are herbivores. They are the first degree consumers. To man, that is secondary consumers and first degree carnivores, and second degree consumer also. Then the tiger, they are third degree consumer and also second degree carnivore. Plants are the producers. Plants are the producers. They are autotrophs. Only autotrophs are the producers. Then energy goes to next level, that is the goat, the primary consumer, that is the first degree. Consumer, they are herbivores. They are also heterotrophs. Man, the second consumer, first degree carnivore and second degree consumer. Tigers are third degree consumer and second degree carnivores. Type of food chain. Types of food chains. They are grazing food chain, grazing food chain, detritus food chain or saprophytic food chain. Detritus food chain or saprophytic food chain. Fungus are the saprotrophs and some bacteria are also included in saprotrophs. Third, parasitic food chain. Parasitic food chain. There are mainly three types of food chains. First, grazing food chain. Second, detritus food chain or saprophytic food chain. Third food chain, the parasitic food chain. Common herbivores are insects, birds and mammals in the ecosystem, and mollusks, mainly slugs and sepia in aquatic ecosystem. Common herbivores are that feed plant product, mainly plant product. The common herbivores are insects and birds and some mammals. In terrestrial ecosystem, if consisting the terrestrial ecosystem, the common herbivores are insects, birds and some mammals. But in case of aquatic ecosystem, mollusk, mainly slugs, sepia, etc. are the common herbivores. The consumers feed on herbivores known as carnivores. The consumers feed on herbivores known as carnivores. They may be primary, secondary or tertiary carnivores. The carnivores may be primary, secondary or tertiary carnivores. Detritus food chain. Detritus food chain begins with dead organic matter. It is made up of decomposers. They are heterotrophs. Decomposers are heterotrophs, mainly fungi, saprophytes and bacteria. The decomposers secrete digestive enzymes that break down dead and waste materials into simple inorganic materials which are absorbed by them. The decomposers, mainly fungi and some bacteria, secrete digestive enzyme that break down dead and waste material into simple inorganic materials which are absorbed by them. In an aquatic ecosystem, that is GFC, much larger fraction of energy flows through detritus food chain than through terrestrial ecosystem. In aquatic ecosystem, much larger fraction of energy flows through detritus food chain than through the terrestrial food chain. Detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain. Detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain at some level. So, some of the organisms of DFC are prey for some GFC animals. Prey. Some of the organisms of DFC are prey for some GFC animals. In natural ecosystem, animals like cockroach, crows are omnivores. Omnivores that eat veg and non-veg products. These natural interaction of food chains make it as a food web. What is food web? In natural ecosystem, animals like cockroach, crows and man are examples of omnivores. This natural interaction of food chains, the natural interaction of food chains make it a food web. A food web is a large chain of chains of interconnected food chains. What is food web? Food web is a large chains of interconnected food chains. Next, trophic level. Trophic level. Based on the source of the nutrition or food, organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain, that is known as their trophic level. Based on the source of the nutrition or food, organisms, that means the living organisms, occupy a specific place in the food chain, that is known as their trophic level. This is an example of food chain. Plant, goat, man and tiger. This is a simple food chain. Based on the source of food or nutrition, organisms, living organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain, that is known as their trophic level. The producers belong to the first trophic level. Producers, that is green plants, belong to first trophic level. Herbivores, that is primary consumers. That is primary consumers to the second trophic level, and carnivores, that is second consumers to the third trophic level. The producers belong to the first trophic level. Herbivores, they are the primary consumers on the second trophic level, and carnivores, that is the second consumers to the third trophic level. Here is an example. The producers, the first trophic level, phytoplanktons, grass and trees. Then the primary consumers are the second trophic level. They are herbivores. Example, zooplanktons, grasshoppers and cow. Then the secondary consumers are the third trophic level. They are carnivores. Examples, birds, fishes and wolf. The tertiary consumers, they are fourth trophic level. They are with fourth trophic level. They are top carnivores. They eat the small carnivores. Example, lion, tiger, etc. The amount of energy decreases at a successive trophic level. The amount of energy decreases at successive trophic levels. When any organism dies, it is converted into detritus or dead biomass that serve as an energy source for decomposers. The amount of energy decreases at successive trophic levels. When an organism dies, it is converted to detritus or dead biomass. Biomass means dry weight of an organism that serve as an energy source for decomposers. Organisms at each trophic level depend on those at the lower trophic level. The higher animals of the higher trophic levels depend upon the lower trophic level members. The organism at each trophic levels depend on those of lower trophic levels for their energy requirement or energy demands. Next, standing crop. Standing crop. Each trophic level has a certain mass of living material at a particular time called the standing crop. Each trophic levels has a certain mass of living materials at a particular time called the standing crop. The standing crop is measured as the mass of living organisms. The standing crops is measured at the mass of living organisms. That is the weight of the organisms. Biomass or the number of unit area. Biomass or the number of unit area. The biomass of species expressed in terms of dry weight. The biomass is expressed in terms of dry weight is more accurate, because the water content of the organism varies. So, if we take the biomass as a dry weight is more accurate. The number of trophic levels. Here for trophic levels, the number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain, GFC. We already discussed about GFC. The number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain GFC restricted based on the energy transfer level. The number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain restricted based on the energy transfer level. Next, what is 10% law? What is 10% law? Only 10% of energy is transferred to each trophic level from lower to lower trophic level. Only 10% of energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level. Consider this trophic level with the energy 1000 kilocalorie. Then to the next higher trophic level only get the 10% of the energy from the lower trophic level. If this trophic level with 1000 kilocalorie, next higher trophic level only get the 10% of the 1000, that is 100 kilocalorie. Then to 10 kilocalorie, 1 kilocalorie. The law of 10%, the only 10% of energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level. The maximum trophic level in DFC is no limit. The maximum trophic level in DFC, detritus, no limit. The maximum trophic levels of GFC up to 4. Next, ecological pyramids. That are also known as Elton's pyramids. Here we can see 4 types of pyramids. First, pyramid of number. Example, grassland ecosystem. There are 4 trophic levels. First, primary producers, plants, secondary, primary consumers, then secondary consumers and the tertiary consumer. The number of individuals, it drastically declined from first to last trophic level. We can see the large decline of the number of organisms. Only 3 top carnivores are in an ecosystem on production of nearly 6 million plants. If on the base, that is the first trophic level, if the first trophic level with the 6 million plants, then in that case only 3 top carnivores on the uppermost trophic level. Next, biomass pyramid. Biomass means dry weight pyramid. Pyramid of biomass show a sharp decrease in biomass at a higher trophic level. Next, inverted pyramid of biomass. Small standing crop. Example, small standing crop of phytoplankton support larger standing crop of zooplanktons. This is the phytoplanktons, this is the zooplanktons. Inverted pyramid of biomass, that is small. Example, in case of small standing crops of phytoplanktons support large number of zooplanktons. Next, energy pyramid. This energy pyramid clearly propose 10% laws. First, primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. The energy flow. You can see this energy flow that support the 10% law. Decomposers, multiple trophic levels and food webs are not included in any pyramid. There is some deformities in case of pyramid. The decomposers, multiple trophic levels and food web are not included in any type of pyramid. Decomposers, multiple trophic levels and food webs are not included in any type of pyramids. Trophic level is a functional level, not a species specific. Trophic levels. Here for trophic levels. Trophic levels is a functional level, not a species specific. Example, a sparrow is a primary consumer when it eats seed and fruits, peas. And secondary, a sparrow is again secondary consumer when it eats insects and worms. There are some deformities. The decomposers, multiple trophic levels, food webs and are not included in any type of pyramids. Trophic level is a functional level, not a species specific. The sparrow is a primary consumer in case they eat seeds, fruits, peas, etc. And also these parrots are secondary consumers also when it eats insects and worms. By the eating habit of human being, that is an exceptional case. By the eating habit of human being, they are included in second, third, fourth and sometimes in the fifth trophic level in food chain. That is in all trophic levels. By the eating habit of human beings, humans are included in third, second, fourth and sometimes in fifth trophic level also in the food chain. That is in most of the trophic levels. Pyramid of energy. Pyramid of energy is always upright. Pyramid of normal case biomass. Pyramid of normal case of biomass, number etc. are upright. Energy, biomass and number are also upright pyramids. Considering a big tree as a pyramid. If we consider a big tree as a pyramid, pyramid of biomass in sea and pyramid of phytoplanktons etc. are inverted. If we take big trees, pyramid of biomass in case of phytoplanktons and biomass of trees are examples of inverted pyramids. The limitations of ecological pyramids. Limitations of ecological pyramids. It does not take into account the same species belonging to two or more trophic levels. Example, sparrow. Limitations of ecological pyramid. It does not take into account the same species, that is the sparrow. Example, the sparrow belonging to 2 or more trophic level. Saprophytes mainly fungi and some bacteria. Saprophytes, they break down the large molecules to smaller one. Destruction process, catabolic process. Saprophytes are not given any place in ecological pyramids. There is no space for saprophytes in ecological pyramids. Next topic, ecological succession. Ecological succession. An important characteristic of all communities, living communities, is that composition and structure constantly change in response to the changing environmental condition. The structure and composition of species are constantly changed according to the change in environmental condition. These changes lead finally to a community. These all type of changes leads to a community that is in near equilibrium with the environment, and that is called climax community. Climax community. The species composition and structure constantly changes according to the environmental conditions. These changes lead finally to a community that is in near equilibrium with the environment and is called climax community. The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called ecological succession. Ecological succession. What is ecological succession? The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called ecological succession. Species composition means the particular type of species that occur in a particular place. The gradual and fairly predictable change in species composition of a given area is called ecological succession. During succession, some species colonize an area. During succession, some species colonize an area. Their population become numerous, whereas populations of other species decline and even disappear. During succession, some species colonize an area. Their population become numerous, whereas populations of other species decline and even disappear from that place. The entire sequence of communities communities include different types of species that living in a particular area. The number of species that live in a particular area is known as community. The entire sequence of communities that successively change in a given area is called series. What is series? The entire sequence of communities that successively change in a given area called series. In successive seral stages, there is a change in the diversity of species of organisms. The successive seral stages, there is a change in the diversity of species of organism. That is, increase in the number of species and organisms as well as increase in the total biomass. Increase in the number of species and organisms as well as increase in the total biomass. Succession occurred over millions of years. Succession occurred over millions of years since life started on Earth. Actually, succession and evolution would have been parallel process at that time. Succession and evolution are parallel process. Succession start where no living organisms there. say bare rock or areas like so. The former, that is the first, is called primary succession and next succession is known as secondary succession. There are two types of successions, primary succession and secondary succession. Example, areas where primary succession occur are newly cooled lava, bare rock, newly created ponds or reservoirs. That establishment of new biotic community is generally slow. The succession starts where no living organisms there, say bare rock or areas like so. The former, that is the first succession, is called primary succession. Then next secondary succession. Example, areas where primary succession occurs were newly cooled lava, bare rock, newly created ponds or reservoirs. The establishment of new biotic community is generally slow. The primary succession is a slow process. The first succession is slow process. Succession where no life existed. The secondary succession is fast. Here, succession where the life existed earlier. The secondary succession begins in where early natural biotic communities have been destroyed. The secondary succession began in where early natural biotic communities have been destroyed, such as in abandonment of farmland, burning of or cutting of forest, lands have been flooded, some soil or sediment is present. Secondary succession faster than primary succession. The primary succession usually occur on bare areas, that is a slow process, but the secondary succession is a fast process where the succession occur on the life existed areas, earlier areas. Secondary succession begin in where early natural biotic communities have been destroyed, such as abandonment of farmlands, burning or cutting of forest lands have been flooded. Next, succession of plants. Based on the nature of the habitat, habitat is the place where the organisms live. Based on the natural habitat, there are different types of succession. Hierarch succession, that take place in water areas. Hierarch succession, that took place in dry areas. Mesic succession, that took place in medium of water condition. In medium water condition. The hierarch succession take place in watery area. Hierarch succession take place in dry area, but mesic succession take place in medium watered condition. The species that invade a bare land are called pioneer species. First, next term, pioneer species. What are pioneer species? Pioneer species are in primary succession the species that invade bare area are called pioneer species. The species that invade or coming to a bare area at first are called pioneer species. Pioneer species are the first type of species that invade in a barren or bare area. The primary succession on rock. The usual pioneer species are lichens. In primary succession on rocks or bare lands, the usual primary or pioneer species are lichens. The usual pioneer species are lichens. What are pioneer species? The first coming species on barren land is known as pioneer species. The primary succession on rock. The usual pioneer species are lichens. Lichens are the first type of species that invade on barren lands. They secrete acids. The lichens secrete acids to dissolve rock, helping in weathering of or make the rock into smaller parts, that is weathering, and soil formation. The lichens secrete acid to dissolve rock, helping in weathering and soil formation. The climax community in this case is forest. The climax community. Next term, climax community. Are usually forests. Examples of primary succession. Examples of primary succession. The example, xeric to mesic. Xeric to mesic succession. Then hydroxeri to mesic. Next, hydroxeri to mesic. Then xeroseri. Crustose, that is lichen stage to folio stage, then moss stage, herb stage, then shrub stage, and last the climax community, that is forest stage. The xeroseri that start from crustose, that is lichen stage to folio stage, to moss stage, then herb stage, then shrubs, then the last climax stage, that is forest. Climax stage. This is the flowchart of xeroseri. To start from crustose, folios, moss, herbs, shrubs, and then last climax stage, that is the forest. Next, hydroxeri. That start from phytoplankton stage, then submerged stage, then floating planted stage, next reed swamp stage, then sedge meadow stage, then woodland stage, next last forest stage. The hydroseries start from phytoplanktons. Phytoplankton stage to submerged stage. That is rooted planted stage in water, then floating stage, with floating plants, then reed swamp stage, with amphibious stage, with bryophytes, example bryophytes. Amphibious planted stage, then sedge meadow stage, then woodland stage, then last climax forest stage. In secondary succession, the species that invade depend on the condition of the soil. In secondary succession, the species that invade in case of secondary succession depend on the condition of the soil, availability of water, and the presence of seeds and propagules that helps for germination already present in that area. The climax is reached quickly. If in case of secondary succession, what are the conditions that promote to reach the climax condition? The availability of water, condition of soil, the presence of seeds and propagules present in the area helps for the development or fast raising of secondary succession. The primary succession is very slow process, taking maybe thousands of years for the climax to be reached. The primary succession is very slow process, taking many thousand years for the climax to be reached. Different types of series. Next, different types of series. Rock, in case of rock, that is known as lithoseries, sand, spamoseries, salty, haloseries, acidic, oxaloseries, and dry condition xeroseries. Examples of crustose lichens. Examples of crustose lichens. Graphis, rhizocarbon. Foliose lichens, examples dermatocarbon, foliose lichens, examples dermatocarbons, Palmelia, Moses, example Polytrichum, Bryum. Phytoplanktons, example unicellular algae like Chlamydomonas. Rooted submerged plants, Hydrilla vallisneria utricularia. Rooted floating plants, rooted floating plants. Example, Nymphaea, Nilumbium, Laminarium. Free floating, examples, Salvinia azola, reed sands. Example, Sagittaria, Typha, Serpus. Examples of crustose lichens, graphis, rhizocarbon. Examples of foliose lichens, dermatocarbon, Pamilia, mosses, polytrichum, bryon, phytoplanktons, unicellular algae-like chlamydomonases, rooted submerged plants, example Hydrilla vallisnerea, utricularia, rooted floating plants, examples Nymphaea, Nilumbium, Laminarium, free floating plants, example Salvinia azola, reed swamps, example Sagittaria, Typha and Serpus. Then marsh meadows, examples of marsh meadows. Example, Juncus and Cypnus. Examples of marsh meadows, Juncus and Cypnus. Scrubs, Salix, that means example Almus. There are two types of scrubs. First, Salix, example Almus. Second, Cornus, example Poplus. Next topic, nutrient cycles. Nutrient cycling, that is also known as biogeochemical cycling. Organisms need to a constant supply of nutrients to grow, reproduce and regulate various body activities. Example, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus and calcium, etc. that are present in the soil. Two types of cycles. First, gaseous cycle and second, sedimentary cycle. First gaseous cycle, first type, second type, sedimentary type of cycles. Gaseous type of nutrient cycle, examples nitrogen and carbon cycles. Examples of sedimentary cycle, sulfur and phosphorus cycle. The reservoir is located in earth crust. The environmental factors like soil, moisture, pH, temperature, etc. regulate the rate of release of nutrients into the atmosphere. The function of the reservoir is to regulate the flux and efflux. Flux means inward and efflux means outward movement of nutrients. First we learn about the carbon cycle. Now here is the picture of symbolic picture of carbon cycle. The carbon constitutes 49% of dry weight of organism. Then and 71% of carbon found dissolved in oceans. Carbon constitutes 49% of dry weight of organisms and also 71% of carbon found in dissolved in oceans. Atmosphere only contains only 1% of total carbon. Atmosphere only contains about 1% of total global carbon. 4 into 10 raised to 13 kilogram carbon fixed in biosphere through photosynthesis in annually. Four into 10 raised to 13 kilogram carbon fixed in biosphere through photosynthesis annually. Carbon returned to atmosphere as respiratory activities, cellular respiration and physical respiration. Carbon returned to atmosphere as respiratory process such as cellular respiration, that is splitting of glucose and produce energy, carbon dioxide and water that occur in the cells, and also physical respiration, that is inhalation and exhalation process of the producers and consumers. Decomposers constitute carbon dioxide pooled by their processing of waste materials and dead organic materials. The fixed carbon is lost to sediments and removed from circulation, burning wood, forest fire and combustion of organic materials. Then next, phosphorus cycle. This is the representation of phosphorus cycle. Natural reservoir of phosphorus is rock. It is the form of phosphate. When rocks weathered, that is split into small pieces, minute amount of phosphate dissolved in soil solution and are absorbed by the trees. Animals obtain this element from plants through food. The decomposers release phosphorus. Example, phosphate solubilizing bacteria. Unlike carbon dioxide, no respiratory release of phosphorus in atmosphere take place. The gaseous exchange of phosphorus and phosphoric input of phosphorus through rainfall are negligible. Last part, ecosystem services. Ecosystem services. Products of ecosystem possess named ecosystem services. The product of ecosystem processes are named ecosystem services. Example, healthy forest ecosystem, purifying air, water, reduce drought and flood, cycle nutrients, generate fertile soil, provide wildlife habitat, maintain biodiversity, pollinate crops, provide storage site, provide aesthetic, cultural and spiritual values. Now we complete this lesson. You can utilize notes for your exam purpose. If you like this class, please like, share and subscribe.
സ്ക്വയർ അല്ലേ മൂന്നാമത്തെ സ്ക്വയർ മേലെ